All right, welcome to Kitchen Table Talk, a Break the Stigma Inc. podcast, where real, unfiltered conversation about first responder mental health and wellness happen. I'm Michael Long, firefighter, paramedic, and founder of Break the Stigma Inc. This show is a place for all of us as firefighters, EMTs, police officers, dispatchers, and other medical professionals to pull up a chair, share stories, and talk about the parts of the job most of us don't see. Here we'll laugh, we'll reflect, we'll learn, and we'll remind each other that it's okay to not be okay, because mental health is just as vital as physical health, and together we can break the stigma. So grab a cup, take a seat, and join us at the table. This episode of Kitchen Table Talk. So a little bit of exciting news for today's episode. We are sponsored this week in the next few episodes by a first responder run business. We are happy to announce that we're proudly sponsored by Neswell Roof and Exterior, a first responder owned and operated roofing and exterior company serving the St. Louis area. Neswell understands the importance of trust and integrity, showing up when it matters most because they've lived that life of service themselves. From roof repairs to replacements to sidings, gutters, and storm damage, Neswell delivers quality work with the same dedication they brought to serving their communities. When you support Neswell, you're supporting a business that continues to give back to first responders and their families. So go check them out, neswellstl.com. All right, guys. Well, also, as we move into this episode, we have a couple guests, and we also, our normal co-host Nick Robin is down and out with all of the icks going around, so our wonderful lieutenant Brian Kempf is stepping in his place. Hopefully he brings his A game and can fill those shoes.
I got it.
On top of that, we have Susan and Tim from Missouri Patriot Paws. They will be our guests on this episode, and obviously today's episode is all about Missouri Patriot Paws and how service dogs benefit the first responders. So if we want to do introductions first, I'll let Brian, if you want to fill the audience in on yourself and who you are.
Sure. So I'm also a firefighter paramedic, lieutenant, along with Mike Long. We've worked together for what's it been now? 6 years, 7 years?
6 years.
6 years. Wow, time flies. Mike started out with me. And then after a couple of years, he moved to a different shift, and we've remained friends. And now I'm a part of Break the Stigma. I'm actually one of the board of directors for the program, and I try to help out and volunteer as much time as I can, along with raising a family and obviously working the job. So that's a little bit of my background, but hopefully Nick feels better and gets better and doesn't pass it along to everyone else like it happened to my family. So, yeah.
I'm sure with his 4 boys at home,
Oh, yeah.
gave it to him, and they'll all share. So,
Yeah.
Susan, Tim, I'll let you guys kind of take it from here.
My name is Susan Hinkle. I am the founder and program director for Missouri Patriot Paws. We started in 2013 doing we did service dogs for Missouri veterans, and then in 2018 we started doing it for first responders. Dogs have actually been my whole career, although I was self-employed and I retired about 6 years ago. But I've been doing therapy dog work for over 30 years. I'm with Alliance of Therapy Dogs. I take my dogs. We go lots of places, hospitals, USO. I worked at the Wounded Warrior Barracks over at Fort Leonard Wood, and I test dogs. I've probably tested over 100 dogs to become registered therapy dogs, and just about every dog in 60-mile radius I've tested. So I could say my life's went to the dogs, and I'm perfectly happy with it. My husband, we're empty nesters. My husband says I don't have an empty nest because I keep filling it up with more dogs.
My name's Tim Kirchhoff. I'm a longtime firefighter paramedic. Most of my career was with the St. Louis Fire Department. Then I went to the St. Charles Fire Department. In 2014, myself and 3 others got trapped in a house fire. I ended up diving out of a window, and due to multiple physical and mental injuries, I was forced into a disability retirement. And I ended up getting a service dog from Missouri Patriot Paws. In fact, I was the first responder team that they trained, and I am now on their board. And I also work with a couple different organizations to help veterans and first responders struggling with post-traumatic stress.
I appreciate you guys both being here. Obviously, the big topic today is the Missouri Patriot Paws, and I guess really is, and Tim and Susan, you both probably have great insight in this. Is how do the service dogs that you guys train, how do they help the veterans and first responders, and how does a first responder or veteran know that it could be an option for them?
Well, usually it comes from your mental health provider. And, dog for some is life changing. A dog for others is a toddler tied to you all the time. So it has pros and cons, but and there's lots of therapies out there. And that's one of the things I've been trying to do on our social media is post more different therapies because what works for one, dogs work. I mean, we have 107 teams have graduated, four more going to graduate in a couple months. So we've helped a lot. But other therapies help other first responders and veterans.
Now, I can tell you from my own experience, when I first really started struggling, I had no idea where to turn. I ended up going to the Center of Excellence, and Dr. Abby Morris suggested a service dog for me, and I had no idea where to turn to get one. So I started to search, and everywhere I looked, I'm finding $30,000, $40,000, insurance won't cover. And I sent Missouri Patriot Paws an email, and Susan literally called me about 30 seconds later. And that's how my journey began. And I can tell you that as far as helping, right off the bat, the training forced me to come out of isolation because isolating was one of my biggest issues. So just going out in public with the dog forced me to come out of the basement, come out of the house, and get around people. So that's where it started for me.
No, and I know that's an awesome thing because I know, as when I went through all of my stuff and others that we've helped over the years and the different people we've talked to, is isolation seems to be one of our main go-to coping mechanisms. I know myself for even the crews I was working with, I am a social person. If people know me, they know that. But when I was going through all my stuff, I mean, I would sit in the bay for 48 hours and not say a word to anybody. Or when I got home, it was wherever I could curl up in a corner essentially and just disappear. And Tim, you can probably contest to this. It all it does is drive you further down the hole in that state of isolation because you don't have that camaraderie, the conversation, the support. Because even if people are trying to support you, all you do is push them away. So I think that's awesome that the dog can pull you out of that. And for the training purposes, even before the dog's serving you, when you're training, it's already helping.
Yeah, after the period after I got injured, but before I was forced into retirement, I still had to go to work, but I couldn't work. So basically, I sat in the office and did nothing. And it was probably the worst period in my life, and it was the worst thing for my mental health because I was already isolating, and that forced me to isolate even more, which made my condition worse. And then when I finally started working with the dog, it got me out.
Yeah.
It forced me to get out if I wanted to do this.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome sentiment to it, and an amazing way to approach the people that are thinking about service dogs is that, just having the dog at the initial inception of the training already can change your life like that. I think it speaks volumes for what a service dog can be to someone. I don't know. It's an amazing story, and Tim, I've heard your story multiple times, and I hate saying love hearing it all the time, but it's a true story of perseverance and getting through some of the hard times and coming out on the other side, and then being part of Missouri Patriot Paws, paying it forward, and really helping other people get through those down times and what to do next. And I think Missouri Patriot Paws, me and Susan have had many conversations since we've started partnering up, and I love having conversations because I think she's on the same page as me when it comes to where our brains go. But Susan, the amount of work you guys are doing with the first responders and with the veterans and the service dogs, I mean, it's a growing topic. And I know one of the things we've discussed in the past, and I'd be interested, and I'm sure our listeners would be interested too, is the concept of these in-house service dogs. The only reason I bring it up is because I had this conversation a couple days ago with somebody about a service dog in the firehouse and how beneficial it would be to, their staff.
Well, one of the things we're going to really concentrate, we have a new division. It's called Paws for Missouri Heroes. We will be doing dual trained therapy, professional therapy dogs for nonprofits that work with veterans and first responders. Dual trained meaning the dog has to really pass the same American Kennel Club Canine Good Citizen and the advanced, and we're going to go take them out in public. And it will have a task under American Disabilities Act. So it's because with Alliance of Therapy Dogs, they do not require task training. They don't even require that the dog is trained at all. They believe that couch potatoes make great therapy dogs. And there's a lot of them that do. But when you're talking about and we're doing one right now over in Pulaski County. Well, if they're planning on being deployed up to the state of Iowa. You have to have training on a dog that you're going to, throw in a car and take it in unknown surroundings and hope that it picks up on the emotional and mental health of the first responders in that area. Now, we were really lucky because the girl I found automatically has went on to it. Now we're enhancing it. We're training it better on cue, but she was so wanting to be, this girl was born to be a therapy dog. And not every dog is at the level that she is. I have to say she's probably better than mine that I've been working with for years because she's very intuitive to other people's pains. Mine are like, pet me and yeah, I'll move on. So I'm very pleased. Her name is Honey. I'm very pleased with Honey. We also have a first responder that graduated last year that is a first responder. He moved. He was isolated. He wanted to come back and retrain his dog, his service dog, to be a professional therapy dog also. So we're doing training for therapy dog work, and he will go work in the South St. Louis fire stations if they need a therapy dog, just as discussed Missouri Patriot Paws, whatever they need. And I know for him, when we discussed, he said, I'm very isolated again. I've moved. I don't have the friends. I don't have a purpose. I said, well, here, let me help you get a purpose. And he loved that because he loves working with his dog. And so, but again, as a service dog, what I have found is once they graduate, well, we don't get out quite as much as we used to. And that's what's happened with this dog. And he's like, I have to come up with places to go. And I said, well, and so he started, it'll probably be 2 or 3 more months of training that we're retraining the dog. And then he'll, like I said, cover the south side of St. Louis for us with fire stations. Because he told me that he goes, I need to help people. I need to get out and help others. And I hear that with you guys too. I mean, we all have to have a goal, a potential. We have to be needed because that helps us with our mental health and our strength if we're helping others. At least I have found that in my own life. And I found that in many of the veterans' lives and first responders.
Yeah. I think you nailed it too with the word purpose, is giving somebody a purpose again, especially in the cases of first responders that can't return to work or, can't get back on the truck. As much as we preach, don't make firefighting or police or whatever your identity and your sole identity, we're all really bad at making it our identity. So when we continue to live that identity and then it's taken away from us for any, whatever reason it would be. We all joined, in my opinion, we joined to serve. We joined to get out and help people. And then that's taken away, that purpose is taken away. And I can wholeheartedly see that the purpose of having the therapy dog and being able to go out and help other people, it's revitalizing a purpose.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I think believe me, I bring you guys up on a regular occurrence when I'm out talking with service dogs, because it's amazing how much people love dogs. It's and I have we only have one now. We just recently had to put one down.
Oh,
But
I don't trust people who don't like dogs, but
yeah, I've never met, and this is just me. I've never met a mean dog. I know there's mean dogs out there, but it's usually because there's mean owners. But it's, I have a mutt downstairs at 60 pounds, and he is the most spastic. I call him the smartest dumb dog you'll ever meet, because he'll run into the window, but he can do like 19 different tricks. So I don't understand where he loses the common sense part of it, but. It's always great when, if I'm down or whatever, and he will come up and just want a pet, or he'll lean against you, and just that companionship can really change your outlook at that moment in time. And I can only imagine what it's like when a service dog that is specifically trained to cue in on those moments,
right.
Is how much different it would be versus, my smart dumb dog I have downstairs.
Right. Well, and what we're trying to get it to do is cue in on the emotions of the people in the room.
Mhm.
And that not every dog has that capability of cueing it. Maybe their owner because they live there. But when we're taking, like I said, this dog will be deployed. Okay, we've got to make sure that she can help everybody, not just her handler. And
Yeah.
like I said, luckily she's so kind of needy herself and loves doing that work. I mean, born to be a therapy dog. We were very lucky on this first one.
Yeah. Now, out of curiosity, how, when you guys select dogs, I know we've talked in the past, and it's usually donated dogs and specific breeds, and you've even mentioned before that you like the bigger breeds. I mean, what is the process on if somebody contacts you to get a dog and they're looking for a dog? How do you determine, which breeder or which type of dog or species, or what's the word?
Well, in the early days, I pretty well picked out every dog, and left on my own, it's going to be a lab or a golden retriever. They love everybody. You could take them out of a shelter, and they're like, "Oh, food, love, I'm home." You can't do that usually with a German Shepherd. I absolutely refuse to take a pit bull out of the shelter. We've had a couple that the veterans owned and raised. That's fine, but I don't know the background of. We don't do a lot of bully breeds. I do have a veteran now that has a Rottweiler. We've done Dobermans, but it kind of like the Shepherds. Most of the Shepherds now are Shepherds are always working. They're about looking around. What do I need to take care of? They're not about taking care. Now there are some good. We've had some good ones. I have to say that we've had some bad ones. Haven't had any labs that's flunked out ever. They're smart. They love people, and so they're much easier. We haven't done a lot of golden retrievers. Golden retrievers are very hard to find in rescue. This honey I happened to find on Facebook. The family was giving her up. And the only reason they were giving her up, which tells me they really loved her, is she was digging out of their backyard to get to the neighbor kids. So she wanted to be with people, and they're like, and so I called them, and they said yes, because we believe she's born for greater things. Also, she's being wasted in our backyard. So we went and picked her up, and it doesn't always happen that way. I got the letter from the first responder nonprofit. Called them. I said, yes, we're willing to help you. What breed do you want? We said, well, if we we'd like to have a golden retriever. I said, well, I'll look for a golden. And I found her within 24 hours and they picked her up within 24 hours, but it doesn't always go that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at a puppy, we've got to do testing to make sure it recovers. I try to take an umbrella in and take some noise in. It's okay if the puppy looks at the noise or the umbrella, but it needs to recover. If it goes down and starts shaking, that's not going to be a real secure dog out in public.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I honestly, I didn't put two and two together until you said that about rescuing shelter dogs even. So it sounds like a handful of your service dogs you've trained are, in the sense of that golden retriever, even just you're giving the dog a second chance on top of the first responder or the veteran.
Right.
That's an awesome sentiment in itself is, not only are you saving the dogs, but you're saving the first responders and veterans.
Yeah. We have a Woodle, which is a Wheaton Terrier and Poodle breeder in Illinois. And we've worked with her a lot. She's a Gold Star Whittle. She donates a lot of puppies, and I think we're on our fourth puppy with her now. I have one of her dogs in my house that got returned for family issues. And so the thing that we're seeing is that people want the poodle mixes. They don't want the hair, and that's fine, but then you have grooming costs. They have to go to the groomers every 4 to 6 weeks, and that's $100 to $150. So there's pros and cons on both sides.
Yeah. No, and I think just the ability to have a choice too is nice because it's not everybody likes golden retrievers or labs or whatever, usually the family dog, but there's people that have no desire to have those breeds and
Absolutely. Now this Woodle breeder, our very first service therapy dog is a Raytown Fire Department, and that was Smokey, and that was probably 6 or 7 years ago. And so trained, some people say, well, you can't make a difference. Well, for us, if they're a service dog, they wear their vest. If they're a therapy dog, they wear their bandana. It's a light bulb that goes on and then you teach them, go visit, say hi, whatever you want to do. They got to have the cue.
Yeah.
But we have had really good luck with Raytown, with Smokey, with being able to go back and forth and with his, because he was a veteran and he's a first responder. And he goes out on calls, and he actually contacted us. So we've been doing this dual trained dog for a while, and it's been pretty successful. It's helped. For me, it's not about just it. What it opens up, instead of helping one person, we're able to help hundreds with one dog. And what better job for a dog than to be out with this? I'll have veterans call me. They say, well, can I bird hunt with my dog? I was like, well, what better way is to spend the day out with you, doing whatever you love, he's going to love. Now, you still got to keep the service dog training up, but dogs love to do all kinds of different things.
Yeah, and I guess since I never even thought of that too, like bird dogs and things like that. When they're other trained dogs, having a service dog, they're already task orientedly trained from puppy up for their specific training. Is that something that, like, with that individual that that was going out bird hunting? Can they pick up on? Can their owners teach them other services and tricks and?
A golden retriever and a lab are bred to be bird dogs. They've got soft mouths. So now, what you may have the problem with is guns going off. Now, that's something a lot of dogs we've had to bring back in for training because they might have been skittish. It's better if you start them as a puppy with that kind of noise. But, some of our veterans do all kinds, some kayak. Well, can I take my dog kayaking? Well, sure, you can take your dog kayaking. It's your dog. I would like to see you put a vest on it if you're going to take it out, so in case it falls overboard. But yeah, I mean, that's the purpose, is that they get you out in public, living your life. Common thing I hear is, I don't go to my kids' baseball games. I want to start rejoining my family. And that happens because the dog, they have to get outside, they have to walk, they have to get exercise. And so it's life changing. And we just had one that passed away. In fact, unfortunately, we've had two dogs pass away this week.
Oh,
And one, he sent me the message, and I said, "Well, I remember definitely the day we picked out of the prison dog." Well, this dog alerted to his heart issue and his PTSD, and picked up alerting to the little girls having seizures.
Hmm.
And the day that happened, he called me. He goes, "You're not going to believe this. He just alerted, and I wasn't even noticing, and helped save the little girl's life."
wow.
So I mean, dogs are fascinating to me.
Yeah. No, and they serve that purpose, and they have their purpose, and I think the task oriented. I mean, it's awesome to know how much they actually do. I guess it's one of those things. I think very few people know what the actual dogs and service dogs do, especially the therapy dogs. Is most I would imagine if you told most people, "Hey, I'm bringing a therapy dog," they think it's just a dog that it's your pet from home, and you're just bringing it out into public to let people pet it. But there's so much more to it than just being in the room. No, and I God, there's so many questions going through my head right now. But I don't want to take up all of the time by myself. And it seems like me and Susan have been going back and forth. I don't know if Brian has any questions down there.
I actually do. When you were talking about like selecting the dogs for whoever needs it, whether it's a first responder or a veteran, do you base it more off of temperament, or do you base it off of just what they're looking for, or is there a particular dog training for a particular need? I mean, how does that work? How does
It's
that process work?
temperament we're looking for.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Kind of lucked out because they knew I loved golden retrievers.
Mhm.
We had to find her. I've not seen another golden retriever pop up on any sites I've been on. So, and I do tell them that. But now the labs and lab mixes are really pretty easy to find.
Okay.
And this one that just passed away this week, it was a lab mix that came out of a shelter that we said. I used to have a contract with prisons, and we trained in Bowling Green. And we've taken dogs out of Licking prison. We no longer do that because they don't do service dog training in the prisons anymore. So, a basic CGC, might as well send it to some of our own trainers and let them start working from the beginning with them, because trainers can have different ways of training or testing. And so this way it's consistent. Once you start with a trainer, you stay with that trainer until you graduate.
Now,
A
are
little
smaller?
side.
Oh, go ahead.
It's okay. A little side note on that. I was just going to say that in 2024, the National Institute of Health did a study, and they concluded that the excitability factor of the dog, they concluded that a dog that remains calm when strangers approach it make a much better PTSD service dog than those that get all excited when strangers approach them.
Oh, my dogs are out then.
Yeah. So
So that was actually a scientific study that was done.
Oh,
It makes sense.
yeah. Well, that's what we're looking for, a calm, intelligent dog.
Mhm.
I guess calm's probably the main. It makes sense because none of us that probably need service dogs are calm. So having the ability to have the service dog be calm, yeah, well, I could see where it'd be beneficial to all of us that go 0 to 100 in a matter of a half a second.
Well, yes, and I tell you what, one of the things too, because several of the veterans have small children, and the issue, some trainers don't allow other dogs. Some don't want to have the small children in their house because it distracts. They want it to be their pet.
Mm-hmm.
I personally do not want it. I allow other dogs in the house because I don't think the kids should have to lose their pet because daddy or mommy is getting a service dog.
Mhm.
Now, can you keep the kids away from your service dog? No, you cannot. But the service dog's job is there to take care of you. One of the things, they honestly have to be in the bedroom with you, because if you have nightmares and you need to get woke up, if the dog's crated in the other room, it can't come and do that for you. So it does need, that's a big thing that a lot of dogs start doing immediately is waking up nightmares. Some will lick their feet, some will jump on them, some will lick their hands. So we tried to train that on a couch or laying down because I had a PTSD veteran say, I don't know what I do. I go, well, ask your wife. She'll tell you what you're doing. And
Yeah.
then we can mimic that and train the dog. And most of them jiggle most of you guys jiggle your legs or jiggle your arms or, twirl something or, so that's fairly easy to teach a dog.
Yeah, I will say my wife knows very well to wake me up from a distance. She's she's learned to do it, poke and move, because usually I wake up very excitable.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
See, now with my dog Ozzy, even though he's my service dog, I will tell you he does a service for the entire family. He knows when something is bothering everyone in this house.
Yeah.
So if something's bothering my wife, he will go and start nudging and bumping her and actually check on her. So, I mean, he just senses everyone that's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the more they do it, the better I think they get in being able to feel the feelings and what's going on with people.
Now, how exhausted do these dogs get if they go to if they're a therapy dog and they go to a room full of 50 firemen? They've got to be running circles.
Now,
they go home and sleep is what they do.
That's what we do.
I will tell you that I do take my dog Ozzy with me to another program, a week-long program, and he gets he's done. I mean, he gets on emotional overload and sensory overload. So I've kind of reduced him in that environment because he's getting up there in age now. So it's a little much on him because he's like walking around the room like,
who do I go to first?
They pick up on this smell and he's like, oh my God, everybody in this room stinks.
Yeah.
Where do I go? So
yeah.
No, and I guess too, I wanted to circle back to the trainers. You had brought up trainers. And I know you guys have a couple of them that you utilize. So how do you, if someone comes in and doesn't know anything about service dogs, how do you determine, I'm sure both trainers are absolutely outstanding at what they do. Is it more location based or breed based or?
We actually have 4 trainers. We're in Dexter. There's 2 in St. Louis and 1 in Rolla. So Rolla, and we actually have a lot of veterans that drive an hour to go to training. And I tell them when you come up, don't use that as an excuse because you're going into this knowing most of this every week you got to drive. We have a veteran driving from Kansas City because we used to train in Kansas City and we separated from that group. And he drives from Kansas City every week. He has never complained, and his dog is doing awesome.
Yeah.
And I said, are you sure you want to do this? And he said, I have wanted this for years, and I am willing to do this.
Yeah, I guess and too, what does the training regimen look like for an individual coming into training?
It's once a week for no more than an hour and a half because by the end of an hour and a half, the dogs are done and the first responder or veteran is done too. They're in brain overload. We do encourage them to either bring their spouse with them to make notes or a lot of times if I'm there, we'll record so they can take it home. Like the trainer may take the leash and show you this is how it is. You record it and then go home and you have it.
Yeah.
What is really nice about our trainers, they're very open to, hey, you got a problem during the week? Call me, text me, message me. I don't care. We're here to support you. It does take at least a year to get through everything. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, just depends on how much. We have a veteran in Rolla that came in with only one leg. her last service dog died, and she is very driven to get this one to school with her. So she's escalating and doing marvelous because she wants that dog to go with her to school when she goes back in January. Normally, in 2 months, you would not pass all this.
Yeah.
And there definitely is a commitment that it takes when you're doing all this training. But the training, in my eyes, the trainers aren't training the dog, they're training the handler.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The dog knows what to do. It comes naturally to the dog. They're teaching the human being on how to pick up on the cues of the animal and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a commitment for you to show up and do the work.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of what we preach in all aspects of, taking care of yourself and mentally or physically is we're all really good at making excuses to not put the time or effort in. It's just like going to therapy. I go every 2 weeks for an hour. I could not do that and not put the investment in. It's just like going to get your training done with the dog. If it's something that's going to benefit you, why would you not have that investment for, like you said, it's an hour and a half, maybe some drive time in between. So, half a day to better your life. I think that's something we forget about when we get our, we all live busy, hectic lifestyles. But being able to carve out that time to take care of yourself is something I think we neglect on ourselves quite often.
Well, I do think that once they get there, they all enjoy it. And I know I go to the trainer. The trainer in Rollo only lives about 2 miles from me. And she's like, you know what? Don't bother, make excuses. The dog will tell on you. Don't bother lying. The dog will tell us whether you worked this week on what you were supposed to.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, the dog's going to rat us out.
Yeah, but it sounds like a lot of that training time between the owner and the dog, I mean, that's therapeutic in itself, right?
It is.
Because not only are you training that dog to, special needs that you need, but you're developing that friendship, that relationship. And like Tim said, you're training yourself really is what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Dog.
Yeah.
So that's quality time,
Well, and we actually have been doing this for so long that we have had several dogs pass away, and we've done second dogs for several guys.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something that came to mind when we were talking about the trainers and if, something comes up in life. Now, what if like you have active first responders or active military and things like that, or just, people that have, lives to where they have travel plans or whatever where they couldn't necessarily take the dogs with them. I know the ideal situation would always have the dog with you, but there are those circumstances where that might come into impede what the plan is. Is that something like you said the trainers would help with boarding or things like that?
The one in Rolla does not. Mary Beth and St. Louis does have a boarding facility. Suzanne does not, and the one in DeSoto or Dexter does not. So there's only one that has. They're pretty flexible. I mean, what happens is you get really in a hurry to take your dog out. And I'll have people who be a month. Oh, I got a service dog. No, you do not have a service dog. You have a service dog in training, and we don't even allow our dogs in Rolla. Again, because she and I have been working together for 15 years. We don't allow our dogs to go out in public as a service dog in training until they've passed their canine good citizen. At least they know how to sit down, stay.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, we have no problem with them going out as a service dog in training. And the disability law in Missouri, they have the same coverage as an ADA. Federal law does not give them the same access. We've had very few issues anywhere in the state of Missouri with even a service dog in training or a service dog. A couple times, but very rarely.
I guess that was actually one of my questions I had here was the access challenges and just the public understanding of what a service dog is and isn't allowed to do. Because, we've all dealt with different scenarios with service dogs. And then also, if we even want to touch the topic of emotional support dogs, they're not even in the same category.
You've got it now.
No.
but it's, we do face those challenges. Even I've had situations on the ambulance, working on the ambulance, where someone wanted to take their service dog on the ambulance with us, which, by law we have to, but unless it impedes on patient care and things like that.
Right.
This situation itself was not I don't think they were properly trained service dogs, because they were growling at me when I came in, which I don't think a service dog would do. But it's one of those things. Just circling into that is like the challenges of, if you take your dog everywhere, which is the ideal circumstance when you have a service dog that's fully trained. Are there places that people need to be aware of to avoid, or if they do get in those conflicts where people are like, "Oh, you can't bring pets in here," trying to explain that it's not a pet.
Yeah,
Now,
I have ADA cards that we usually give them, and it's like, don't argue, hand them the card, tell them they got a problem with you, call the Justice Department. We had a service dog that he was an over the road trucker, and he had I can't remember why, he had to go on an ambulance on the East Coast. And of course, his dog was very well behaved. They took him to the hospital. They had no problems. We had a couple dogs, had to ride. I would like to get into more training now that we're in so many fire stations. We're going to have easier access to ambulance training. It's just like this one honey the other day. We went over to the fire station in Waynesville. I said, let's turn the sirens on. Let's get her used to it. She like, oh, okay. It didn't bother her at all. But they need to be able to do that and be able to stay calm in that kind of situation.
now, I personally have had challenges at a restaurant, couple of restaurants, where it's, you can't bring your pet in here. We don't allow pets in here.
Well, may I ask, were they international restaurants? Oh,
Yes.
yeah. That's where we have the most problems. Yes.
And it's usually a very young person at the front, and I'll be very polite. Let me speak to your manager. The manager will come out and say the exact same thing. We don't allow pets in here, and I will use that opportunity to educate. I won't get mad. I'll educate them on the ADA laws, because I know them frontwards and backwards. And then if they try to escalate it and say something like, well, we're going to call the police, I'll simply say, go ahead. Please do. I'll give them the website for the ADA with the frequently asked questions for service dogs. And that usually stops it right there, because they'll get their phone out and they'll look and they're like, oh, and that's usually the end of it.
Right.
So I'll use it as an opportunity to educate people rather than get mad and scream and kick. And so I'll try and educate them rather than get frustrated, but it does occasionally happen.
Yeah, I do think that it's just ignorance of the law. And there are things that you can ask about a service dog under ADA, and there's things you can ask. And one of the things you cannot ask is, what's your disability? No, it's none of your business what my disability is. You can ask, is this dog trained to mitigate your disability? And what are the tasks? You can't ask them to demonstrate, but they have to know. And that's what I tell most of the guys when they graduate: know your tasks. If your memory's really bad, write them down, put them in the dog's vest so you can pull it out, because by law, the public does have rights too. And those are the two questions. Now, if the dog is misbehaving, the dog needs to leave. And the person, we've never had a problem with our dogs misbehaving, but they are dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice for anybody, contemplating the service dog. And that is, that you there's a possibility you face challenges, but I think, as Tim said too, just knowing your information so you can educate others and, get the best service out of your dog, and then letting other people know what their purpose is. Because I think that's a challenge we have, especially, and it's come up twice now, is the challenges of the emotional support dogs being like, you just go online, pay $100, and all of a sudden your dog can go anywhere you want it to because it's got this special little tag, or you buy the vest on Amazon, and, but you're in per ADA, you're not really allowed to ask. And
you can get online and get a service dog certification also, which is complete nonsense. So it's, for someone with a service dog, it's rather aggravating. And when you're someone that has a service dog without an obvious disability, that's, it's a little more of an issue because people give me more looks than like somebody in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I do think the emotional support dog has clouded the whole issue because I do work at Phelps Health with my therapy dog. I see a lot of service dogs, and I see a lot of good ones. I see a lot that I don't think is trained, but I don't say anything as long as they're well behaved. But when the Chihuahua gets off the elevator and is trying to take my therapy dog's head off, I'm like, they're picking it up by the leash, saying, "This is my service dog." I said, "That is not a trained service dog, and get it away from my therapy dog." It's okay. I mean, I've been at the hospital and the nurses warned me. They said there's a service dog that is in one of the rooms. I'm like, okay, which one? I won't go in there. Well, he happened to come down the hall. It was a little pit bull, very well behaved. It looked at my therapy dog. My therapy dog looked at him, and then they ignored each other. I mean, it's perfectly okay for the dogs to look at each other, but they can't react to each other. And it's interesting working at a hospital how many bad service dogs I see, and or people who have to bring them in in a crate, a piccolo carrier. Well, why is your service dog in a carrier? One tried to take Ryder's head off. And so, well, this is my service dog. I said, no, that's your emotional support dog, and it's a really bad example. I will not. I will be leaving this office now because it's not reacting like that.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge too. Is that the training is just because you have a certificate doesn't mean that the training has been done. And just figuring out the education on that end of letting people know the difference between those two. Because I can imagine Tim having a service dog and, like you said, not being in a wheelchair and stuff. People are probably questioning, what the hell is this about? Why does he have a dog? Why does it say service dog on it? It says do not pet, or whatever it is. And it's like, well, what? And then everybody starts saying, well, what's wrong with him? Well, it's none of their business, but I think that is also, if whether you're comfortable or not with it, in anybody that has a service dog is also a great opportunity to educate people in the services that they can provide to the mental health of individuals.
Yeah. I mean, people probably leave me alone a little more now than in the past, simply because I walk with a little more of a limp now. So maybe they see that and go, oh, maybe he does have a problem.
So with the public interaction of these dogs, are there any rules as far as, because like some dogs you're not allowed to pet, and I've been around certain service dogs in the public, and their owners kind of scoot the dog away, or they'll tell you, you can't pet them. What are the stipulations with these service dogs? What's the difference?
Now,
Well,
the not petting, it's
Mhm.
not that you're going to ruin the dog's training. It's the fact that the dog's its attention is supposed to be on the handler.
Mhm.
It's not supposed to be on somebody else. And that's the whole do not pet.
Gotcha.
yeah, and that's the thing with these dual trained dogs. When they're out being a therapy dog, the veteran, the first responder has to give the command, even when it's out representing a nonprofit. That they have to give the command, go say hi, visit something. The dog has to wait because it is supposed to be taken when you're a service dog and a therapy dog. Yes, you are supposed to be taking care of that person in public.
Now, when it comes to petting in public, me personally, if someone comes up to me and asks me politely if they can pet my dog, I use it as training reinforcement. I will put my dog in like a downstay, and I will tell the individual that as long as he stays in that position, they can pet him. But the second he starts to get up, they have to stop petting him. So I use it as training,
Okay.
as training reinforcement.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, and this has been absolutely full of great information, and we're rolling up on the end of our time So we got a few more minutes, and I have a couple more questions for Susan and Tim. And then we started doing I'm going to put everybody on the spot. At the end of the episodes now, we do a little bit of advice moving forward, something just from the heart to tell all of our first responders, veterans, anybody that's listening, kind of, what would you say to help take care of yourself? Tips, tricks, skills, anything of the above. But first off, I'd love to know, for your guys' sake and for Missouri Patriot Paws, is there ways that if our listeners want to get involved or help spread the word or, be a volunteer in some way, what are some of the things they could do or reach out to and ask to be involved in something like this?
We do not have, unless I start a puppy raising, every year you got to sit down and make your new goals. And because we were left a trust last year, I was able to sit down and start dreaming bigger than what I had been. And so with the dual trained dogs, we're able to open up a whole new segment now. And that's interesting. So it's always sitting down. What is it we want to see come this year? Like everybody, you constantly keep moving. I mean, for 15 years, because I was hired by companies out of, Texas, and I worked for them for 2 years. And then my husband said, "You make a great boss. I had employees for 30 years, but you make a lousy employee." Well, stop working for them, which I did. And I took 6 months to pray. Okay, Lord, if you want me to do this, then you're going to have to help me because I have to pay these trainers. And so every year there's just consistency. And my treasurer and I have, she's a retired bank president. We've been friends for 40 years. And she's like, "How do you know these people?" I'm like, "I don't know how I mean, some people I know, some people I don't know. We have a church over in Salem, Missouri that's been given to us for years, every 6 months. We're a ministry for them. And so probably the funnest fundraiser I ever had was the Children of the American Revolution. And it was years ago. The state president took us on as her state project for that year. We had generations making little dog tags and selling them. That was so much fun that year with that group of people because you'd walk in a room and there's grandma and grandpa and there's the parents and there's the kids all doing this stuff for the dogs and helping the kids. It was a really lot of fun.
Okay. So just basically keep an eye out for all of those events and different fundraisers and things.
Well, the fundraisers, if anyone's willing to host a fundraiser, I mean, we're kind of like with you guys, we're partnering up with nonprofits that help more this year. We'll probably do more focusing on St. Louis fire stations and fire stations around the state is probably going to be where I focus my time and energy this year. But and again, I'm kicking around the idea of the puppy raisers. Always has been there. My granddaughter and I do 4-H together, and I lead dog training in that. Could be that area. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, awesome. No, it sounds like there's a lot of big things coming,
I
or
hope
in
so.
the works at least. And I appreciate it, and I know you guys took the time out of your day to join us today and inform us of a lot of information on service dogs. So like I said, one thing I like to do, and it's on the spot, but feel free to skip if you want. But just kind of one word of advice moving forward for, the first responders and veterans and whoever else may be listening, just to better take care of themselves.
Well, I think Tim probably could speak to this better than I did, but don't be afraid to reach out. I mean, even my own mental health really crashed last year, and I really had to reach out and get the help I needed. Mine was very short term from a very short term trauma, but it's still very dark. And if you're in that dark place, because we've also had several suicides lately, that is a quick fix and a long-term problem for the people you love. So reach out.
Yep.
I would say if you're struggling, don't wait.
Right.
I waited way too long, and it definitely did not help. It made things much worse. And also, don't be afraid to look at holistic approaches, because I've gotten much better results out of those than I have
That's good, Tim.
conventional methods, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Brian?
Well, I'd like to hit back on a point we had at the beginning of this podcast. Was we talked about isolation, and I think when you start to notice yourself and even someone else isolating, that's a pretty good sign that something's going on, and I think it should be addressed. And we're born and bred to do this job. That's why we get into it. We want to help others. We definitely need to help ourselves in order to do that. And when we start noticing that, we need to reach out and seek that help. Whether we do it on our own by researching and finding that help that we need, or reaching out to someone else and asking for help. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. And just remember, you're not alone.
Yep. No, I
If
love it.
one closing statement, because years ago I noticed in Raytown, police departments and fire stations were not interested. They wanted to hide the mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I do see a shift in them want to support their firemen and their policemen and their EMTs in mental health. They know they have to do something and address this issue.
Mm-hmm.
There is help out there if you just reach for it.
Yeah, and that's it. The culture change environment, one of the big things we push is changing the culture, changing the stigma. And, to touch on all three of your guys' points is, early intervention, know your resources, do your research. And if you don't know where to look, just call somebody that knows. Everybody's been through something, I'll tell you that. We're all human beings. So
Right.
don't struggle alone, just reach out.
Right.
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to thank all you guys for joining us. And as always, we appreciate all the listeners today. And if you have any questions, concerns, topics, anything you want to bring up in the future on any of these podcasts, please reach out to any of our social medias, Break the Stigma Inc. Website, breakthestigmainc.com, or you can email me personally at breakthestigmainc@gmail.com. Please feel free to share and with all of this with your peers. And then also remember to push your chair in, put your cup in the dishwasher, and have a wonderful day.
You guys have a great day too.
Thank you, Susan. And